Morning hiking friends, it's Micey. Have you ever felt like you are not enough? A little bit of a backstory. I gave my life to Jesus in 2005 when I was 42 years old. I met Jesus when I was a kid. When I was little, we used to go to church almost every Sunday, except during the summertime when we were on summer break from school. So I met Jesus when I was little. Met him in Sunday school, heard the stories, but then we would go home. And even though my mom went to church every Sunday too, she heard the stories about Jesus herself, but they never sank into her heart from her head, and they still haven't. So from Monday through Saturday, there was no Jesus in my house when I was a kid. Even though there was no Jesus in my house from Monday through Saturday, I believed he was real. At least when I was very small. But then life happens. You find out things like Santa Claus is a lie, and there's an Easter bunny. Where that came from, I don't know. Also a lie, and has nothing to do with Easter. And you find out Tooth Fairy is a lie. You find out that all of these stories that you've heard are lies. And then you start wondering what really is true. And then you make your way out into the world, into school, and you find out that you're not good enough. You're not pretty enough, you're not cute enough, you're not funny enough, you're not happy enough. You find out you're just not enough. And life gets harder. And the older you get, life just gets harder. And the older I got, I started to comprehend that I wasn't even good enough in my own house. I cried too much. I whined too much. I talked too much. I was too much like my dad. I was too difficult. The older I got, the more I believed I wasn't good enough for anybody. I definitely believed I wasn't good enough for my mom. I was always too something. Too sneaky, too much like my dad, to the point that if she was mad at my dad, she wouldn't talk to me for days. But isn't this how life goes for us? And I don't want you to think that I had a bad childhood. I didn't have a bad childhood. I had a home, I was fed and clothed, and I was taken care of. I was not abused. I had to grow up to understand how parents parent their children. I had to have my own children to understand how hard it is to be a parent, and that we do the best that we can. But I give you this backstory so that you can understand the sequence of events that led me to stop loving Jesus. Which leads me to my dad. He was the one person I thought accepted me for who I am, who loved me the way I was, who loved me the way I am. I'm not dead. But he was not there. He was always working or going out to socialize with somebody, And so he wasn't the one that was there all day, every day. He was there on weekends, and, you know, maybe you could talk to him for an hour in the evening, or just, you know, at the dinner table. But my mom was the one that was there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. My mom was the one who made the rules and enforced the rules, and, you know, it was kind of a good cop, bad cop parenting situation. That played a huge role in me choosing to love my dad more than my mom. Because my dad was the fun parent. He didn't really do that much disciplining. Not towards me, anyway. And in 1980, when I was 16 years old, he died pretty suddenly. And I was devastated, as you might imagine. And so when that happened, that event sealed my fate for 26 years, because I threw my hands in the air and I shook my fists at God and said, why would you do this? Why would you take away the one person I thought loved me for who I was, who didn't think I wasn't enough, who thought I was okay just the way I was? Why would you do that? I decided I didn't need God. I didn't even know if I believed he was real. And I never had the opportunity to get to know him well enough when I was a kid, because he wasn't in front of me that way. And so I left him. I just left him behind and said, see ya. I got this. I don't need you. I will never speak to you again. And lived my life for 26 years completely without God. I spent that 26 years looking for unconditional love, looking for acceptance, looking for someone to say, you are enough, looking for someone to assure me that I was okay just being who I was. And I never found what I was looking for. I tried being married, and that was a disaster, because that man turned out to be extremely abusive. The only good thing to come out of that relationship was my oldest son. I tried looking for unconditional love from my children. I have 2 sons. I love my sons more than anything, but there isn't unconditional acceptance in those relationships, because we're human and we make mistakes. Even if we have good intentions, we screw up. And I'm thankful that they love me despite all of my screw-ups. I looked for love and acceptance in the bottom of an alcohol bottle, and all that did for me was get me drunk every day for 5 years, and gave me a false sense of happiness and joy, because at least with alcohol I could laugh. I looked for love and acceptance from too many men. I can't even count how many men. I tried to find love and acceptance with, never worked, and left me feeling more empty as time went on. So yeah, for years I searched and searched and searched for someone to love me for who I am. And being a highly sensitive person, I don't know why, but I absorbed every criticism, every negative thing anybody ever said to me, and believed those lies were true. And my heart just shriveled up. It got smaller and smaller and smaller, and I alienated myself from people more and more and more with every hurt that was flung on me. Until I was left with only my kids and my mom and my sister and maybe one or two friends. And that is all. So when I moved to Florida in 2004, I was running away from my life of misery. I was still naively thinking that I could find greener grass on the other side of the fence. But of course that plan backfired. I moved away from the only people who could tolerate me anymore because I was such a miserable person. And it was just me and my kids and the alcohol. And I didn't want to drink anymore because it wasn't helping. If anything, it was making life worse. But I couldn't stop drinking because, at the very least, I was emotionally addicted to alcohol. So we get to Florida and I have nobody. And I had been sinking into depression for several years. And I just sunk even more deeply into depression when I moved to Florida. Because now I was in Florida with no support system at all. 1 year later, after moving to Florida, I hit the floor. I didn't want to be alive anymore. I just didn't want to be here anymore because I just couldn't take one more thing. I couldn't take one more day of sadness. I couldn't take one more day of responsibility. I just didn't want to be here. And I went to work that day crying, and it wasn't busy that day. And that's when my friend Carla opened her mouth and said the most beautiful words anybody ever said to me. Can I tell you how Jesus changed my life? And she told me about the one person who would accept me exactly the way I am and love me unconditionally. And I didn't understand how it could happen because I have done a lot of really, really bad things in my life. And how can anybody just forgive me for those things and accept me and take me back? And she told me that I had to believe it in order for it to happen. That's what faith is. You believe something you completely don't understand, and you ask God to forgive you for all of the bad things you've done, and He'll take you back. Friends, it's all true. I went home that night and I prayed to God. Maybe for the first time ever. And I asked Him, I begged Him to forgive me. And I asked Him if He was real, if He would show up, because I wanted to know Him. Not for what He could do for me, but because I was wrong and I needed Him. I needed Him to save me. And He showed up. And my life has never been the same. He took away my need for alcohol overnight. I never needed it again. I didn't have any withdrawal symptoms. Just took it away. Snapped his fingers because I believed He could. That was 3 weeks after we met for real. And my life has gotten better and better and better. And I'm gonna tell you, my life hasn't necessarily gotten easier, but my life has gotten better because I know there is a God in heaven who loves me exactly the way I am. He made me this way. He created me to be who I am for a reason. I know that now. And like I said last time, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And being an introvert, being highly sensitive, these are not things that are wrong. They make me who I am. And I'm learning to be okay with that. I am learning that I am enough. And that if people don't like who I am, it's okay. Because I have the unconditional love of Jesus Christ. And that is enough. That is enough. I am enough for Him, and He is enough for me. I am His, and He is mine. And that is good news. And this is the Good News Talk playlist. I hope that you find encouragement from this playlist. I'm glad you're here, and I'm happy that I got to share my backstory, my before Jesus story with you, and I will share more with you about my life, my backstory, and I can't wait to share more with you about how great my life is now that I am a friend of God. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you again next time.